Chaos is everywhere, but steady leaders rise above it with clarity. I'm your host, Skylar Williamson, and this is the Steady Leader Podcast. Whether you're leading a team, a company, your family, or just yourself, this show gives you the tools to stay calm, think clearly, and lead with confidence. Let's get steady. Hey, welcome everybody. Skylar Williamson here for the Steady Leader Podcast, where we help leaders achieve steady production by bringing clarity to their chaos with leadership models that actually work. And today I'm extremely excited to have Ted Oakley with us. Ted is a managing partner and founder of Oxbow Advisors, where he spent more than 4 decades advising high net worth clients and developing proprietary investment strategies known as the Oxbow Principles. He's a chartered financial analyst, a certified financial planner, a frequent guest on Fox Business, Bloomberg Radio, and Thoughtful Money. Ted is also the author of 11 books on wealth and investing, including his latest, Second Generation Wealth. And beyond finance, he's a U.S. Army veteran. He's a U.S. Army veteran, the founder of several nonprofit organizations supporting foster children across Texas, and he serves on several boards. So, Ted, thank you so much for being with us, and I'm excited to have you here.
You bet, Skylar. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this because I know, one, you're leading an organization. You've been doing it for decades now. So, some people can get lucky in short runs, but to last, I know that leaders, they have to make enough good decisions to keep going. And I know a lot of your clients are great leaders too. So I'm excited about the breadth of experience that you can bring to this conversation. My folks that listen, I know they know this, but I like to start the conversations off with, what's your definition of leadership? So no doubt you've got one, but what would you say leadership is if you were just describing it to people?
Well, if I describe it to people, leadership to me is where you take your organization to an end result. In other words, you have processes, you have a lot of things, but leadership is where you're guiding that group of people to whatever you want that to be in the end result. And you can look at it. I mean, a lot of things go into that, but in the end, if you're running a company or whatever you're doing, you're trying to achieve something. And, that's really how, to me, leadership is the person they look to say, okay, where are we going here and how are we going to get there? Yeah. And I think the leader is the one that really sets the pace for that.
Yeah. Well, I like that definition because you can use that definition whether you're leading yourself or your team or your company.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
When you've looked at just leading yourself, making sure that you're prepared to be the leader other people need and expect, what are the things that you're doing in your life to lead yourself to make sure that you're just a steady producer every day?
Well, there's a number of things, but I write every day, and I have my whole life. And I write down every morning real early when I'm having coffee. I write down all the affirmations, things I'm grateful for, but also what I want to do this year. And then I write down what I want to do over a lifetime goal. But I always write it down. If you don't write it down, I don't think you really ever know it. And I don't ever tell anybody that really. I don't talk to my employees about that, but that's something that's how I do it. And then semi-annually, I look at the goals that I've set. Always in December, I set what I want to try to do, what I want to achieve for that next year. And I've got all those notes going back. You said I've been around 4 decades. Unfortunately, I'm getting closer to 5 decades. But I write down, I've got them way back. I mean, I've got them back over 40 years of what I expected to do that year. And I go back and look at them sometimes, and most of the time, you're going to get 80% of that if you really hone in on it, and they were smaller goals, obviously, back then, but I do, that's one thing I do to get it started. But the other thing I do is, and I think any great leader is going to do this, you got to read. And I mean, you got to read a lot, read as much as you can. You'll learn from other people. I've learned a tremendous amount from really, really successful business people. And you might just glean one little thing from one of them and one from another one, but it's what I picked up over the years, and I'm appreciative of that. because they always had something they could say, no, I thought that's a good idea. But I think what happens with people, the longer they're around on this leadership thing, is they plateau and they don't come back every year and say, I want to continually be ambitious. I don't care what my age is. I want to continually be ambitious. And I see people in business do this. They hit a plateau and they're done for their lifetime. And I never wanted to do that. That was not something. I always want to be continually learning and growing. And I think the people around you see that too, so they don't become complacent. But that's how I drive you want to know how I drive myself.
How do you choose the books that you're reading?
I choose a lot of different kinds of books, really, and you get a lot of things from. I'll see a good business book, for example, and I'll read that book, and then I'll see a book like I've almost finished with a brand new book that was by a guy named Oz Perelman. You've probably seen him around. He's a mentalist, but he came out with a new book called Read Your Mind. He can read your mind. He can't really read your mind, but you go Google him up sometime. He'll freak you out by what he does. But anyway, it's things like that. Now, every once in a while, every 4th or 5th year, I read this book, and I always have. And it was a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Probably one of the greatest business books that was ever written, because it's about how you see yourself in the light. In other words, do you see yourself as successful? And anyway, the new version, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, a friend of mine named Dan Kennedy bought I've been reading it before that, but he bought the rights to it. And then, a guy named Keith, I just read a book just called, a great business guy named Keith Fabrazic wrote a book called Who's Got Your Back? It's about your organization, what you got in the organization. Just read a great autobiography by of all people, Lionel Richie.
Yeah.
But you get things from there. You find out that those people, you read that book of Lionel Richie, you realize he had to struggle. And you think about him today, this guy is just unbelievable, but he had to struggle.
Yeah.
In more ways than one. And so I read a lot of things like that. But I read a lot of business too. Great author here in town, guy that I use his service, named Peter Attia. He wrote Outlive.
Yeah.
Another great book about staying in shape, getting older. I read all kinds of books like that, but they're not always, I think you limit yourself by just reading, business books every day, because you can get a lot out of other books too.
Yeah. And so when you're reading those, are you smart enough that it's causing you to think and you're just bringing that to your business, or are you writing down models or notes? I mean,
sometimes I do. It depends on the book. I mean, if it's a really good book about how doing business, I'll run those notes.
Yeah.
And try to run that. Like, for example, this book right here, I just finished.
Yep.
It's a little book by a friend of mine named Dan Sullivan, but it's entitled Always More Ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that you'll have a lot better life if you can block your life into 6 years, 3 years past, and then the 3 years looking forward. And he always had a theory, which I agree with, is that people have a goal for the year. And let's say usually I'm going to make 100%, but say you make 80%. And instead of looking back and being really happy that you did 8%, a lot of people are bummed out that they didn't do the 20, which is the wrong way to look at it. I mean, you want to stay on a positive note, if possible, but that's the way that's the way I do myself, I should say,
Yeah. Yeah. I read his book, The Gap in the Gain. And,
what's that?
I read his book, The Gap in the Gain.
Yeah. That's a great book, by the way. That's what we're talking about right here.
Yeah.
I've known him. I used him for about 20 years. Good guy. He's 81 years old. Thinks his whole point is he's going to live to 100. I think he tells me 122.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
He's probably talking to Tia too.
well, he could be for sure. But
Uh,
anyway, that's kind of how I do it.
yeah. Yeah. And when you're doing your affirmations and you're writing those down in the morning, are those the same ones, you find yourself more in the
Really,
morning? Or are you doing it
they vary.
they vary?
Uh, let's just say you're having a problem in your company. I mean, it's not going to end your company or something. Just for something you're trying to overcome. Um, I may write about that.
Yeah.
Um, if I had a disagreement with my wife, I might write about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just being honest with you.
Yeah.
I write about. I'm pretty hard on myself about can I can I be the better person in situations. Can I be the one that's gonna be open minded? Can I um, try to be benevolent, grateful,
Yeah.
all those things? And there's hardly a day goes by unless I'm just out of socket somewhere. Like I giving a speech in Dallas Friday and I couldn't do it, but even then I'll write it when I get back.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you see people fail in leading themselves, where do you see most of that failure happen?
Well, a lot of times it's just in hard work. They're willing to do something, but I think if you're going to be really successful, you're going to have to pay the price for it. I mean, there's no way around it. I think you could. Um, I see people. You can get lucky now in a company, and just trying to be in the right place at the right time. But generally, the people I see and myself and everybody else I've ever known, they had to work. They had to work. They had to work pretty hard to keep things going, and they couldn't just get to a point and just live on the laurels. They had to keep on going.
Yeah. Okay, so if we shift gears, from leading yourself to leading your team, your immediate, folks that report to you, um, what do you need to do as a leader with that group to make sure that the team is producing in a steady way?
Well, I think anybody that has a company will realize that you're the leader, but you've got to have leaders below you. And when you figure out who they are, like for me, I've got I've got about 4 or 5, but 5, and they're the ones that I concentrate on more than the people below them. And the reason I say that is because they'll carry the weight for you.
Mhm.
In other words, if you get in a situation where it's all up to you and you're really trying to build something, I think, and I've seen this with so many people, um, they got to make every decision. They got to make cross every T, sign every check, do everything. And, they just get bogged down. They can't go anywhere. So I think you have to have leaders below you. In my case, I've got 5 good ones. They're great, as a matter of fact. I have complete trust in all of them. Everyone does a different thing, but I really trust them in what they're doing. And so if I'm not here, I know and they're all segments that I need in the business. Uh, and that's what I do with that group. Now, the group below them, I try to meet with them as a group a couple of times a year. You can't meet too much. You could, I guess you could, but I try to meet a few times a year so that I can tell them, number one, how I appreciate them. And number two, what are we doing here? Where are we going here this year? And I do that just because I want them to have a sense that they have a piece of that same goal that everybody else has. And I do that when I'll have everybody in the company on that call, just about.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much how I do the leadership within the company itself.
Yeah. And when you say you focus on the 5, I know you're saying most of your time is spent with them. But are you just pouring into them, teaching them, like sharing your vision with them? Like what does it look like? Or is it more
Well,
kind of
it's both. I give them a lot of advice in those areas. 'Cause
mm,
a lot of times they haven't been where I've been, closed the kind of business I closed. Um, and one of the things, and a lot of times a problem will come up and they want to bounce it back and forth. And I'll tell them my thoughts on it. Cause I've probably already seen this problem more than likely. And so that's how we, that, that's how we do most of those. Or we'll have something that happens, you have something comes up in a company, you didn't mean for it to, but it comes up and you and that person have to sit down and figure it out, what you're going to do. And that's how I do it. I think each one of those people I've taught a lot of things to. I think, being a head coach, you have to develop good assistants. And in order to do that, you got to teach them. And I think I teach them really well so that when they know what the game plan is, they know how we do things, know how to treat people. And that's the way I do it. Now, maybe that's the wrong way, but it's the way I do it.
yeah. Good. All right. So if we shift to the third section, leading the company as a whole, what are you paying attention to, at the highest levels, to make sure that the company itself stays steady in its production and doesn't ride this like
Yeah.
highs and lows, all the time?
Well, I have a theory on, it's basically on accountability.
Yeah.
And so if I've got 7 frontline people that are portfolio managers, they work with clientele, they do different things. And I want to know on new business, for example, you could tell me that, hey, I'm working on this, that, and the other, whatever. But if you can't quantify it to me, then you don't know what you're doing. So in other words, let's just say somebody is calling on clients to sell widgets. And I asked them, well, how many, what's the possibility here? I mean, what can you sell? Well, I don't know. I know this one buys some or that. I said, well, that's not good enough. Okay. You need to tell me in your total pipeline, how much widgets you've got working on prospecting that pipeline. And if you say, I don't know, then you're just kidding yourself. Because in most cases, I don't care what you're selling in business, whatever you've got in that pipeline, you're probably only going to close about 20% of it. And I've run this up the pole with a lot of different businesses. So if you have people on the front line that don't know how much they're calling on, they're wasting their time because they could be calling on something. And you got to teach them to ask that question to that business owner you're trying to sell something to. Okay, hey, how many widgets a year do you buy? If he says, well, I don't buy any. See, then you're out. Okay. And then one says, oh, I buy thousands and thousands. Okay. That's my prospect. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you add all that up and you say, this is how I do it. I said, give me your accountability on what you got in the pipeline. Because if you don't have it in the pipeline, if you're calling on people with money, for example, you better have 700, 800 million, $1 billion in that pipeline. For sure. Okay. And if you don't have, then you're not going to close, like I say, your close rate on things is 15, 20%. So maybe others are better or higher, but that's what I've experienced in different businesses. So you start them out with accountability and then you sit them down every year and say, okay, this is where we started. This is where we are June 30th. So we're making it, they're getting there, or we're not getting there. And here's the reason why, I think, so you press that with them, not, run hurt on them. I mean, just saying you have to give them accountability and assure them that you're right there with them to help them, to do that. That's the way I think you have to do it in any business.
Hey, everybody. I have an exciting opportunity for you. We are looking to grow with Laundry Love. If you have ever thought about buying a business, if you've ever thought about buying into a franchise, look no further. Go into the show notes, send me an email. I will send you an email with all the reasons why you should buy a laundromat and get in business with Laundry Love. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Most people, if you hire well, they wanna do a good job. They wanna
Yeah.
succeed. They want to, and so really what you need to do is kind of what you're saying. You just need to shine a light on where you should be focused. And
Yeah, if they're younger, they don't know. They got the energy, they got the smarts, but they don't know exactly what to do, you know?
yeah,
Um, and they don't know how to channel their energy or channel what's going on.
yeah.
And I think that's important. Um, I had a young man come by to see me a couple of days ago. It's in the property casualty business, and he was scattered all over the place calling on different business. And I said, "Hey, you can't be a generalist in that business. Okay, what you need to do is go out and say, I'm going to take every dump truck manufacturer, whatever you want to do, everyone you want to get a niche. Okay, agriculture, beer distributors, whatever." And that's going to be my niche. And I'm going to call everyone I can find and see. Because what happens is one starts using you, and then they know the other one, even though they're competitors, but they know you're good. And I said, that's how you build a business. You don't just shotgun and hope something hits on the wall. And I don't know if he'll do that, but that's what he should do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think you have to know what problem you are capable of uniquely solving. I
Yeah.
mean, when we have folks come work for us, I wanna know, like, what makes you special? What can we build a business around that you're uniquely qualified, whether it's your story or your education or whatever, your expertise? That way we can build something around you that's different than everybody else, but it has to be something special. You can't just go do what I'm doing because I'm gonna beat you at it.
Right. Right. That's true.
Yep. Um, well, that's good. So if you were talking to a young leader out there, maybe they just got a new leadership position, or maybe they just have an aspiration of being a leader. What would you tell them just with your experience? Hey, master this first and and then go from there. But what would that one thing be for folks to master?
Well, for the entrepreneur, two things really I'd say for the entrepreneurs out there that have your own company, you need to remember that the best salesman in the country, and I don't care in the company, no matter what you're doing, is the president. That's you. And if you can't master that, you need to take a second look at yourself.
Yeah.
Because the best companies that do the best, I promise you, that president, CEO is the best salesman in the company for sure.
Mhm.
Now, for everybody else, I give them this advice, which is I wish I had learned this early on. I learned it, but it took me a while. Um, there's a really good book out there that's been out a long time called Necessary Endings. And it's about relatives that drag you down or friends that drag you down. Um, and I don't keep anybody in my life that is negative energy on me. I don't care how long I've known them, how good a friend they are, relative, whatever. I'm not going to do the negative energy thing with somebody.
Yeah.
If they want to go that trip, they can. But here's where it applies to a company. It will kill your company if you hire somebody or somebody's in that company when you buy it or whatever, and they're a victim type person with a negative attitude. They will ruin your whole company. Okay. And a lot of people don't take the action they should, which is you got to get rid of that person because you can't fix them. Okay. I've been down this road too many times. You cannot fix them.
Yeah.
You've got to get rid of them because they'll ruin the attitude of the rest of your company. Because you want your company to be a very positive, happy place to work. Everybody pulls together, that sort of thing. And all of a sudden you get this person that talks behind the back and they're always sick, something wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, save yourself a lot of trouble because that'll ruin your whole company, and get rid of that person. I don't know if that's advice,
Well,
but that's what I would say it is.
I I mean, it's for your own health as the leader. I mean, it drags you down too. I mean, not to mention
Yeah.
everybody around them.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
soon as if we've hired somebody and I've got 4 different offices, but if we hire somebody and I tell everyone when they're interviewing with the person they're interviewing there, I said, look, you tell them now, we're going to look at you in 90 days and you can look at us.
Yeah.
But if I determine 90 days that you're a victim and you just can't get it straight, we're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and you'll find your company will run a lot smoother like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell some of these young leaders too, because I live this in combat. Leaders can have a bad moment, but they can't have a bad day.
Yeah.
And so if you feel like you're about to have a bad day as a leader, you need to go home because you can't have your people see you have a bad day. I mean, and so have your bad moment and then get yourself back right because you took on the responsibility as leader. You can't have a bad day. So if you have these people that are having bad days every day, then good grief. It is.
I mean, you gotta, like I always pride myself and I don't think I've ever stayed home sick. And I felt bad, but I made sure that they knew I was around. Now, if it was something I thought was contagious, I'd keep working, but I wouldn't try to be around them on that case. But
Yeah.
Just on a kind of a private note, I had 3 months ago, I had a little small, it's by the way, it's not cancerous or anything, but I had a little small cyst they had to take out of my lung because it was in a bad spot.
Yeah.
And it was tough because they go inside your chest cavity.
Yeah.
And it's probably a 5 or 6 month recovery. But I will tell you, I never stopped. When things needed to be done, I did. I didn't feel like it a lot of times, but I did it because I didn't want them to think, well, he's going to drop the ball here because I know about that.
Yeah.
And I just think somebody has to be an example. And that's usually going to be me.
Yeah. 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 Well, if not you, who's it going to be?
Yeah.
I mean, you have the title. Ted, man, I'm so grateful for all this, all the value that you brought. How can we follow you and what you're doing? I mean, I already subscribe and follow your YouTube channel, but what else you have going on?
Well, you could get on YouTube if you've come to oxbowadvisors.com. Yeah, that's all of our that's everything we do. We're real transparent in a lot of times we'll put things in there just of interest, but that's the best place. I mean, we live in kind of a crazy world right now. And so you want to keep good people around you if you can, friends, compadres, whatever. You'll see pretty much about everything we do there at the website.
All right, Ted. Well, I'm grateful. And for all of you that have listened this far, I'm grateful for you listening. And just remember, like, I'm doing this so that we can create more steady leaders. I believe that steady leaders, the ones that truly care and show up every day for their people, are bringing love to this world, playing the game beyond just making money. And that's my encouragement to you all. Continue to get better so that you can continue to make this place a better world. Thanks you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
You bet.
If today's episode helped you lead with a little more clarity and calm, share it with someone who needs it. Remember to stay grounded, stay focused, stay steady. Follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Skylar Williamson for more leadership insights and behind-the-scenes content. You can also visit SkylarWilliamson.com for more ways to connect with me. Until next time, I'm Skylar Williamson. Steady on.